Okay, good morning. A very warm welcome to St. George's University and to Grenada. I'd like to recognize the presence of Dr. Sean Charles, our Chief Medical Officer from the Ministry of Health, Mr. Elvis Moraine, the Permanent Secretary with responsibility for education, our Chancellor, Dr. Charles Modica, our President, Dr. G. Richard Olds, and he's also our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Marius Lucas, the Dean of the School of Medicine, Dr. Robert Grant, our Senior Associate Dean of Clinical Studies, Dr. Glenn Jacobs, our Provost, the Deans and the representatives from the School of Arts and Sciences, the School of Veterinary Medicine, and the Dean of Students' Office. We also have our chairs and administrators from our academic departments, and I, most importantly, want to say a warm welcome to our staff, our specially invited guests, our parents who are here to support the most important guests this morning, which are our students and the class of 2027. Now, I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you. I remember in orientation, we talked about the MD program objectives. And this morning, so for those of you who have not met me, I'm Mark Clunas, the Senior Associate Dean of Basic Sciences here in Grenada. So this morning's about our students. It's about milestones. Some of those milestones are very personal and private. The time that you received your letter of acceptance from SGU, you probably remember where you were. The time you got on the plane to come to Grenada, the time you landed in a foreign country to start your medical studies. So those will be different for each of you as you go through your career. Today is different. It's a very public proclamation and milestone that you're taking part in this morning. It's a celebration, a public commitment witnessed by your peers, witnessed by the faculty, and of course witnessed by those who support you, your family. It's a very visible sign of your choice to commit, to don your white coat. Patients won't know your Step 2 score. They will assume that you meet all the requirements for knowledge, and I think we talked about that in orientation. But what they will remember is how you treat them with respect, sensitivity to their dignity, empathy and compassion. And how you treat someone can have profound effects on their care and can be remembered decades after you've interacted with those patients. So today's commitment, it's a contract. It's a contract with yourself, a contract to society, and a contract to your profession. Who will you be as a physician? What will your professional identity be? Now, the wonderful part of professional identity is that you're 100% responsible for it. It falls right in your wheelhouse. Now, I'm a great Stoic philosopher. And one of the tenets of Stoic philosophy is that between every action and reaction, there's time to decide what that reaction is. And essentially what that says is, you may not be in control of the world around you, but you're fully in control of how you choose to interact with the situation. And I think that's important for professional reflection, to remember that each time you have an opportunity to react, be mindful and think what that reaction is going to be. It's also a commitment to diligence, excellence, and your professional reputation. Part of that is humanism, how you interact, and as I say, the empathy and compassion that you show to your care. But also, as a scientist, what I want to add is to rationality, a commitment to rational clinical reasoning. Even the brightest minds can go astray when they rely on their own internal implicit deductions. That's why nowadays healthcare is delivered in teams, with reliance on cause and effect and a community of professionals that you're part of. And I've got a little cautionary tale that I think is incredibly relevant to our times. In the 1660s, around about 1665, It's about 40 years after the Mayflower had landed in the New World. The plague was crossing Europe and approaching England. They decided, of course, to go into lockdown. It's all sounding very familiar to our own reflections over the last few years. Ships were intercepted on the Channel and quarantined because Britain is an island. They could control the flow of people into the land. What was a problem? A year earlier, a bright comet had been seen in the sky, and it was taken as a portent of evil. So the whole of England was anxious about what may come, knowing that the plague was approaching them. In May 1665, the first few deaths were recorded, and over the next 18 months, nearly a quarter of London's inhabitants perished. Now, those are the most accurate figures that are assumed. It affected all of England, but the most accurate figures came from London. Now, in that time, and this is a remarkable story, universities closed, sent their students home. King Charles II left London, and he took up residence in Oxford. And there's an odd act took place. They suspected that animals were the cause. They were so close and yet so far. They actually ordered all cats and dogs to be killed. The unfortunate consequence of that was that the rat population increased. Of course, there were no Zoom classes back then. All interactions were by letter, which could take days, weeks, months. And there was one young gentleman in his early 20s. You've all heard of him. He left Oxford. He isolated for 2 years. And in that 2 years, he had what's called nowadays as his year of wonders. On his own, early 20s, no contact with any other academia. That was Isaac Newton. And he went on, in that 1 year of isolation, to contribute to celestial mechanics, a whole branch of mathematics known as calculus, and foundational contribution to optics. Now, you may think to yourself, why am I mentioning a physicist here? He undoubtedly had a huge impact on the world. Almost everything around you has been impacted by Sir Isaac Newton. What less people know is his contribution to medical science, and there's good reason for that. In 1667, he published a paper on how to treat plague. Now, let me read a little excerpt from you here. The lesson in this is that even great minds are fallible and go astray when we don't rely on evidence-based medicine. So his cure for the plague was hang a toad by the back legs in the chimney for 3 days. Once it's vomited its stomach contents of earth and insects, collect them in a wax dish and let the toad expire. Dry the toad, grind it with the excretion and the serum, make it into lozenges, and wear it on the affected areas. It will draw the poison out and prevent contagion. So the contrast here, one of the greatest rational minds that made some of the most indelible discoveries of our age, and yet without the appropriate training in the appropriate discipline, was so far off the mark. So no matter how bright you are, recognize that there are opportunities for fallibility. And that's what your commitment here is today, is for professional growth, to keep yourself relevant, to be the expert in the room. Now, that paper was not seen with the same gravity as other works, and its lessons are oddly relevant to what we've seen in our times. So to serve your patients best, commit to the highest standards of humanism, professionalism, but also as scientist physicians, working with sound rationality. Now, I'd like to read just a little bit about the history of St. George's University and the White Coat Ceremony. In 1993, the Arnold P. Gold Foundation created the White Coat Ceremony at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons. And that was to promote humanism in medicine. With guidance from the Gold Foundation, St. George's University School of Medicine initiated its own White Coat Ceremony in 1996, long before many other US medical schools. In 2003, the Gold Foundation founded the Gold Humanism Honor Society, widely known as the GHHS. It's an international society dedicated to the promotion of humanism, professionalism, and ethics in medical practice and education. Dr. Arnold Gold passed away in 2018 at the age of 92. He was an international advocate for humanism in healthcare, and SGU was honoured to have hosted Dr. Gold and his wife Sandra as keynote speakers at our spring 2005 White Coat ceremony. SGU's chapter of the GHHS is based in the Department of Clinical Skills and supported by the Dean of Medicine's office. Our chapter established Humanitarian Student Organisation in 2009, where the basic sciences students promote humanism across the SGU and Grenadian communities. Chapter members are nominated by their peers and inducted during their clinical training, where they participate in ongoing chapter projects. Now, it's my pleasure this morning to hand over to our Provost, Dr. Glenn Jacobs, the Provost of St. George's University.
Thank you, Dr. Kloons. Good morning. Morning. I stand on the protocol already established, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to St. George's University and the island of Grenada. A special word of welcome to all our parents, family, and friends present here today. Students, I am very happy to welcome you in person. I will not be addressing you that often. The next time I probably speak to you as a group will be during your graduation. Yep, you will be amazed how quickly that'll be. So, you guys have come here with great intellect. So I thought, what will I tell you this morning? What might I leave you with? You're going to hear a lot of stuff from a lot of different people. Maybe as one thing you can take with you today and make you, yourself, a better person. So yes, you come with great intellect. You have and will gain lots of knowledge while being at SGU. But I trust during your time, you will also develop your wisdom. Now, John Eso, the best-selling author, explains it so well in his book, The 5 Secrets You Must Discover Before You Die. Now, wisdom is different and fundamentally more important than knowledge. Knowledge is the accumulation of facts, whereas wisdom is the ability to discern what matters and what does not matter. Unless we can discover what really matters, we cannot find the true meaning in life. So, I will encourage you to take time here in Grenada to explore this beautiful island, get to know this great community, and I'm looking forward to interacting with you during your time here at St. George's University. To the parents again, to the family, friends, enjoy this beautiful island that your loved ones are going to be part of and that they will be experiencing. Hopefully you can experience some of that over this weekend as well. Now, there's a small little change in the programs, just so that you guys don't think I messed it up. I will not be introducing the Chancellor, so it is now my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Marius Lucas, Dean, School of Medicine. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. So nice to see you, and congratulations of class 2027. It's a great moment, I believe, for all of you. You've been admitted to St. George's University, one of the best universities you could ever go concerning medicine, that's for sure. As you know, we're the #1 provider in the United States. Yeah. Of physicians. So, since we talk about Stoic philosophers, we talked about Isaac Newton, and we talked a little bit about wisdom, I'm going to give you 3 practical skills or competencies that I think we all have in a lesser or greater degree, but it's good to have it in our mind and try to augment those skills as much as we can. Skill number 1, adaptability. You're in a new place. We have to adapt. We go to a profession that constantly adapts. As we say as a joke, a scientific joke, 50% of what you learn today, it's maybe wrong or it's not applicable. The only problem, we don't know which 50%. So we constantly in medical school or in medicine or as doctors, we adapt. So try to adapt as much as you can. This is a very interesting skill. The second interesting skill, keep positive, keep optimistic. If you see people that they are negative, there are two options. One, to try to make them positive, or two, to not really talk with them again. So always the glass is half full. The same with your patients. You're going to have a lot of patients, you're going to see a lot of patients, and unfortunately some of them, they're very, very sick, and there is only so much you can do. But always you have to be optimistic. And that optimism has to come out to the rest and be infectious, very infectious. Dr. Olds is an infectious disease person. He will talk to you about optimism through his incredible speech that is coming in a couple of minutes. But try to keep it, try to push it. We are creatures of habit, so make it a habit. Make a habit to adapt easily, make a habit to be very positive, always with a big smile, and everybody wants to have friends that they are happy, right? Everybody wants to work with people that they are happy. And the third one, which is the difficult one, in our profession, in our life, we constantly do sacrifices. Medicine is a profession that has a lot of sacrifices. Not the same like it was before, but definitely we'll need to put aside some of the things that you normally do, because we have a lot of exams, we have a lot of things that we need to prove to the rest of the world that we are capable of doing. So those three things are extremely, extremely important. And if you put them together, you're going to have one of the greatest lives in medicine that you can ever imagine. On those words of wisdom, as Dr. Jacobs will say, I would like to introduce an amazing figure, somebody that it's a pioneer in this world, that he has done something that very few people can do. This is the founder of this university, Charles Modica.
Yeah, that guy's really old coming up to this. It's a great honor to be here. We had a little switch in the program because the old chancellor comes down and goes, I think we should change the order. And the reason I wanted to change the order is I wanted to be the one to introduce Dr. Olds, which I will in a few minutes. But in my few seconds of meeting you and greeting you, hopefully before graduation, at my age you have to cross your fingers that I'm going to see you at graduation. You will be a special class. It'll be the Golden Jubilee of St. George's University. Yeah. So much like class before you, I get to meet you and greet you. In the early days, you might say, I wonder what part of the campus was here in those days. Not one brick, not one stone, nothing that's here now was here when the charter class was here. In fact, part of the runway occupies where some of the lesser dorms were. And you might say, I wonder how many buildings were air-conditioned? 0. Which turns out to have been a good thing, by the way. Our electric bill here is over $1 million a month, US, by the way, not EC. I was with the Prime Minister yesterday, and we were talking about electricity in Grenada. It's very costly here. It's about 4 times the rate of the United States, for instance, and we're trying to look for alternatives. And I know him. I know he just got elected, by the way, this spring. He's a younger guy, and I've mentioned to him a number of times that it's great to be the old guy that is the chancellor of a university that was founded before you were born. So, yeah, you get to feel like George Washington after a while, but I wanted to... And it's okay. And I can tell you that what the charter class did, the biggest thing they did, is they met a guy who was the founder, who it took 2 years to get it going. So when I met them, I was 29, the ripe old age of 29. And I came down to Grenada, and the Prime Minister introduced me to them at Government House. The Governor General was there, the Prime Minister, and I'm kind of behind the scenes. No one had met me yet. Yet I kind of concocted this whole thing. At this point in time in my life, it was a crazy idea. At that time, it seemed like a real simple thing to do. That's how it works when you're 29. And I'll never forget, I get introduced, we're at Government House, all the pomp and ceremony of that charter class being there, and I come out from behind the curtain, the Prime Minister introduces me, and I look, and I'm really proud, and I had not met the students before, nor had they met me, nor knew my age, and I had a three-piece suit, by the way. I thought I'd look a little more distinguished and elderly, and we talk about it a lot, because I'm very close to all those students in that class, and they looked at me, and I wasn't prepared for what I was getting. I thought I had everything pretty much solid, and they had the look of absolute horror in their faces. But the average age of the class was 27, by the way, of that class. So the three-piece suit didn't do me well. We went through it together, and they stayed. We didn't have, in fact, the electricity, no wonder the bill wasn't much then. It was off half of the time, literally. So you talk about people studying with flashlights and candles. They literally did that. When you have water here on campus and through most parts of the island now on a daily basis, boy, they had it once every 3 or 4 days. At one point, we bought an old fire truck from the United States to bring down and haul water back and forth, and that was like a big moment on campus. You know, we were all the heroes, the administration, because we had this water truck come by and help out a little bit. And the reason I talk about that is, you might say, why did they stay? And at the time, I believed they would be crazy to leave. And a number of them left after the national boards, because I used to tell them that, look, I went to med school, then I went to law school when I concocted this crazy idea. And I told them from my heart and my head that you will double the pass rate on the boards. At that time, it was 33% for foreign schools. So I figured 66, didn't want to promise more than I thought we could deliver, but I thought that was a sure thing. And we had the AMA beating us up, like you won't believe. I was like the rebel, believe me. And they take the national boards, that same class. Flashlights, hardly any water. They took the boards. Second highest pass rate in the world that first year. Yeah. So, about a third of that class transferred to U.S. medical schools. God bless them, we wanted that. They were our diplomats. They went to schools they couldn't get into. They earned their way in. Over the years, we've had almost 2,000 transfer to U.S. schools after a few years, 2 years here generally. And I got to tell you that those students helped set up what St. George's is now, and where you get to enjoy. But the key thing here is, yeah, you'll have electricity, you'll have water. God knows the tuition reflects all of that. If I told you what their tuition is, I think it was $2,250 a semester. Yeah. A lot less bills to pay. But the one thing you have in common, each and every class that has come in, I see you when you begin, hopefully when you graduate, I'll be the guy with the red, colorful robe that hands you a diploma. The thing in common is you. Your desire to become physicians. Think about that. Your resolve to study hard, to earn a degree. And I get proud of you. Teary-eyed. I didn't do that in the old days. Comes with age. So one of the milestones in this university is about when in the past decade, we were about to recruit a president. We had never had a president. We had an old chancellor, and I worked with everybody and led the ship and all that. And I become more of a figurehead, which is okay. But we needed a vibrant president of the university, our first president. And we kind of lined up the first dean of a California medical school in 40 years, the first new medical school in California in 40 years. The state university system decided finally to get more medical schools. That's what we were all about. There weren't enough in the United States. That's one of the reasons we're the largest producer of doctors in the United States now, because of our size and our success. So to land the first dean of the first new medical school in 40 years in California was not an easy task. And I got to tell you, I was a little nervous meeting him. And he's going to be the keynote speaker today. That's why I'm talking about him. And that's why we switched the order. I wanted to introduce him. So I kind of held my breath, went into a room in New York City and met him. And the first thing I said, do you know much about St. George's, Dr. Oles? And he said, I know a little bit about St. George's, and it's really positive. I said, this is good. And he said, I was in charge of a residency program for a number of years before I became dean. And some of my best residents were from St. George's University. Yeah. And ever since that charter class, that's what you've done. Many, I think, one year we did a study of chief residents that graduated St. George. About a quarter of our graduating classes became chief residents. That means they worked harder and they were smarter. So in the investiture of Dr. Oles, the head of the state university system came here to Grenada to introduce him. And during that ceremony, I was so honored to know that someone who was able to be respected by the state of California for the first school in 40 years could become our president. So with that, I'd like to introduce my good friend and our president, Dr. Richard Oles.
Well, that was quite an introduction. And welcome to you, the class of 2027. This is really all about you. Well, one of the things that Dr. Modica didn't say is I've been a physician for a very long period of time. In fact, when you graduate in 2027, I will have been a doctor for over 50 years. And all of those years, I trained doctors. So I've been to a lot of white coat ceremonies, spoke at them, been there, etc. And you've already had several of the best topics that I can remember from white coat ceremonies from the people that came before me. And so as I was sitting around figuring out what would I say today at your white coat ceremony, I wasn't sure, so I asked my son. And he said, Dad, just tell them a bunch of your good stories. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to tell you 3 stories which I think symbolize what the meaning of that white coat is that you're going to put on today. Now, the first story takes place about 45 years ago. I'm in internal medicine as a field, and I trained at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, a pretty intimidating place. And the very first week of my internship, I was called to the emergency room, and I walked into the EW room, and there was an elderly black woman sitting bolt upright in bed and extremely short of breath. That was Miss Robinson. Now, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what was wrong with Miss Robinson. She was obviously in congestive heart failure, but all you had to do is put your hand on her chest and you could feel the harsh thrill of aortic stenosis. Now, for your non-physicians in the audience, the aorta is the big blood vessel that exits the heart, and there's a valve there called the aortic valve. And if that valve ever becomes narrow, it becomes harder and harder for the heart to push blood out to the rest of the body. And if it gets too narrow, the heart fails. And one of the problems with that condition is medicine doesn't treat it very well. Really, the only way to save the life of a person with that condition when it gets severe is open heart surgery to replace the valve. Well, Miss Robinson, we got her a little bit better with oxygen and other things, and she went upstairs. And an hour or so later, I came back up to see how she was doing, and I was greeted by this huge stack of charts that were all of Miss Robinson's past admissions. So I thumbed through them, and I found extensive workups of Miss Robinson in her condition, aortic stenosis, from many of the luminaries that had trained at the Mass General before me. And every one of those workups ended with she has to have open heart surgery, and every one of those admissions she steadfastly refused to have the surgery and was medically treated and sent home. Now, also important to me is I opened the very last chart, and I discovered that Miss Robinson's house officer had just left for a fellowship, had completed his residency, which meant Miss Robinson was now my patient. So I took care of Miss Robinson on and off through that first summer, and I got to know her pretty well. And as you can imagine, there were many similar episodes. She'd come in very short of breath. We'd get her a little better. We'd recommend surgery, and she'd refuse. She'd end up going home, and a couple of weeks later, she'd come back. But I actually got to know her pretty well. And I remember on one of those admissions, I sat down with Miss Robinson. I said, you know, Miss Robinson, I know you're a very intelligent woman. You've been a school teacher for over 40 years, and it's not very hard to tell what's going on. All you got to do is just put your hand on your heart, and you can feel the problem. And I know you know the only way to save your life is to have this surgery. I really don't understand why you keep refusing to have that surgery. Well, by now she, I think, got to know me pretty well, and she confided in me that she had moved to Boston from the South as a young woman. She had never married. She had worked for 40 years, and she retired about 15 years ago. And now all of her family, friends, people that she knew had either moved away or died, and she was all alone. And every time she thought of coming into this huge hospital and having this huge operation and dealing with this very scary activities and long rehabilitation, she just became petrified. And she didn't want to deal with it, so she just refused to have the surgery and went home. And this happened over and over and over again. Well, I thought about that, and about 2 days later, she was still in the hospital. I came in, I said, Miss Robinson, what if you had a friend that would come into the hospital with you during the admission process and be with you when anesthesia was induced and be there when you woke up from anesthesia and would visit you every single day as you recovered from that surgery? Do you think you would have the courage to go through with this operation? And she thought about it, and she said, you know, maybe I could do that. Well, 2 days later, Miss Robinson and I were admitted to the Mass General Hospital. I was there when she was admitted. I was there when the anesthesia was induced. I was there in the recovery room, and I visited her every day in her long recovery. And I remember her vividly because during that time she actually knitted an Afghan for me that still sits on our bed, my wife and I's, in our farm in Vermont. Now, you know, that story of Miss Robinson is Miss Robinson didn't need a rocket scientist to figure out what was going wrong, didn't need a long dissertation about what the right treatment was, etc. All Mrs. Robinson needed was a friend. And if there weren't any other friends around, it had to be me. And that's the meaning of that white coat you put on today. Now, the second story requires a little background. So I've trained, as I said, doctors for many years, and I've always thought it would be helpful if you as medical students actually were patients a few times, because you'd realize how difficult it is to be a patient, how scary it is, how somewhat embarrassing it is to be a patient, how particularly petrifying if you're admitted with an unknown disease as you sit there trying to figure out what's going on. But even more terrifying than you being a patient is, I can tell you, being a parent and having your child admitted to the hospital with an unknown disease or a terrible injury. That is a truly terrifying experience. So my second story started about 25 years ago. At the time, I was the chairman of medicine at Case Western Reserve University, which happens to be my alma mater, and our hospital was located in the center of Cleveland, and our family decided that we would live really out in the country. So we moved to a little town called Chagrin Falls. It was a ways from the hospital, but our house backed onto the metro parks, which was a massive green forested area, and it fell away very steeply and eventually dumped into the Chagrin River. Anyway, it was a cold January snowy day in Cleveland, and I was there home at Saturday working at my office, and suddenly there was terrible banging on the front door of the house. And I ran downstairs and opened it up, and it was my middle son, and he was exhausted. He was short of breath. He said, "Dad," his younger brother had been in a sledding accident, and he wasn't moving, and he's not conscious. That was the most terrifying moment of my life. Well, I got it together to call 911 and left my middle son there to direct the EMTs, and I sprinted back into those woods, and sure enough, there was my youngest son crumpled at the base of a tree, not moving and not conscious. Now, I had enough sense not to move him, and we covered him with our parkas, and what seemed like forever before the EMTs arrived with a bodyboard, which we put him on, and we carried him up the steep slope into the ambulance, and eventually, about a mile away, we stopped at a helipad, and there was Life Flight, which was a helicopter ambulance service actually based at my hospital. Now, I was able to fly on that helicopter back to the hospital. It took us 8 minutes. My wife and the rest of the kids took 45 minutes to get there by car. And when we arrived, they whisked my son into the trauma bay and trauma surgery locations, and I was sitting alone in the waiting room. About 15 minutes later, a young woman came out, and she said, "I wanted to come out and tell you that it doesn't look like your son has a skull fracture. It looks like his spine is okay. He's moving all 4 of his extremities, and we think he's probably going to be okay." That was a wonderful moment. So my son survived many broken bones, lost a bunch of teeth, had lacerated his liver, and had a grade 3 concussion. But he grew up and became a professional actor and has had a wonderful life. And I'm grateful for that. But I will never forget that young lady in her white coat that came out to tell me some good news. And that's also the meaning of that white coat. Now, the last story took place about 16 years ago. At that time, I was actually chairman of the Department of Medicine at a different medical school, the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. I had a big department. I had about 300 faculty, and we were equally split between the University Hospitals, Froedtert, and the local VA hospital. And as chairman of medicine, I attended about 4 months out of the year. And I always attended in July. Now, why July? Well, it's because all the interns are brand new, and all of the medical students are in their very first medical rotation and know nothing. And so I always put my most senior faculty and my most senior residents on those floors, so we knew everything was going to go okay. And sure enough, I started in July, and I started at the VA hospital. I attended quite a bit at the VA hospital. And over those months of attending, I got to know many of the patients that were repeatedly admitted to the VA. My team started the 1st of July. Well, a few days into the month, I was admitted Mr. Anderson. Now, I knew Mr. Anderson. I had taken care of him a few times before, and Mr. Anderson had a very sad story. Mr. Anderson's wife had died about 10 years before, and Mr. Anderson had developed leukemia, and he had to undergo many rounds of toxic chemotherapy and radiation therapy, and if that wasn't bad enough, at the end of that long ordeal, he had a massive stroke that paralyzed the left side of his body, and he had to leave his beloved dairy farm in northern Wisconsin and move in with his daughter in Milwaukee, and he lived this life of bedridden and in and out of the hospital with a variety of complications that invalid and bedridden patients often have. And he was admitted this time again with a urinary tract infection. Well, I assigned a young medical student, Bill, to this case. It wasn't exactly an accident. I knew Bill came from the same dairy farm area in northern Wisconsin. I thought they might have something in common. In fact, that turned out to be the case. I would often walk by Mr. Anderson's room, and Bill would be in there, and they'd be talking about fly fishing or bow hunting deer, or Mr. Anderson would be telling Bill about the Vietnam War, something that he knew really virtually nothing about. Anyway, he eventually got better and discharged home, and he was readmitted a couple other times with, new problems that such patients get. And of course, I reassigned Bill every time. And the end of the month rolled around, and I rotated off the service as the attending. And that next week, I had a medical conference, and so I left town and didn't come back for a week. When I got back, there was a note on my secretary's desk from Mr. Anderson's daughter. So I called her up, and she told me that while I was gone, Mr. Anderson had passed away. I gave her, of course, my condolences and told her that I was sorry I wasn't there for her and the family toward the end. But she then told me an interesting story. Mr. Anderson was a deeply religious man, and he just could not understand why God had punished him so. His wife had died prematurely. He had terrible illnesses. He had to suffer through the treatment. But the very worst thing is he had to leave his beloved dairy farm and had to live this terrible life of being bedridden and running in and out of the hospital. But she said just a few days before he died, he said, I finally understand what God wanted me to do. He wanted me to hang around a little longer so I could make Bill a better doctor. And that's the meaning of your white coat you put on today. Now, you have wonderful faculty here. They'll teach you all about the science of medicine, health and disease, how things work. They'll actually teach you how those stethoscopes work. By the way, the pointy end goes in your ear. Anyway, we'll teach you all of that. I'm sure you'll all be great physicians. But you'll learn the art of medicine from your patients. Listen to them, care about them, and they will teach you to be a great physician. You're all going to grow up and be great physicians, but I want you to appreciate what is unique about the profession you are in and what the real meaning of that coat is that you put on today. And so for you, the class of 2027, congratulations and welcome to the noble profession of medicine.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olds, for those very inspiring words. St. George's University School of Medicine will now present you with a white coat that symbolizes your entry into the profession and your commitment to uphold the duties associated with medicine and medical training. I now invite the college directors to take the stage. Our coders today include Dr. Mayana Charles, Dr. Vivek Naguri, Dr. Erlan Charles, Dr. Theophanis Collias, Dr. Dion Forrester, Dr. Rachel George, Dr. Gabrielle Wolcott-Bidot, and Dr. Mishon Saku Pertab. In recognition of our international enrollment, Dr. Nitsa Topal, our Associate Dean for Evaluation and Assessment, will call each student by name and state their country of birth. Those students who today have with them a physician, family member, or loved one will be quoted by those physicians. Please hold your applause until all students have been quoted and keep the aisles clear for the duration of the quoting. Thank you very much.
I will now call on the students from Blackwell College to come forward and be robed. Fernie Etienne from Grenada. Makiba Christopher, Grenada. Kendra Dakota, Grenada. Shanique Filbert Emmanuel, Grenada. Nandi Robinson, Grenada. Taffy Thompson, Grenada. Raza Ali, New Jersey, USA. Chantel Bernard, Grenada. Arisa Noel, Grenada. Tisha Sugram, Trinidad and Tobago. Bright Nwanguma, North Carolina, USA. Pedro Garza, Texas. Laura Bajakian, California. Amanda Marie Witowski, New Jersey. Lawrence Sutton, Grenada. Zeel Patel, India. Brishti Chakrabarti, Pennsylvania. Yarnique Campbell, Trinidad and Tobago. Zareen Muzamil, Florida. Brittany Espinoza, Nevada. Ariane Benjamin, Trinidad and Tobago. Mariam Dow, New York. Toluwani Ojewole, Indiana. Marcia Brooms, Grenada. Ebony Prince, Grenada. Ariel Smith, Grenada. Leandre Joseph, Grenada. I will now call on the students from Blackwell College to be roped, sorry, Curie College to be roped. Jade B. Richardson, Bermuda. Rachel Jenkins, Florida. Courtney Harrison, Minnesota. Sarah Khalil, Nebraska. Brianna Salfarley, Grenada. Reagan Mahoney, Ontario, Canada. Jiwon Oh, South Korea. Shakoya Bunbury Brown, New York. Drew Knight, Kentucky. Nikita Dixit, Delaware. Christy David, Grenada. Nelia Thomas, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Gevorg Danielyan, California. Alu Hussein Darman, Yemen. Manasa Manchikanti, Kentucky. Malaika Ali, California. Divine Imoka, Nigeria. Idir Mohil, Pennsylvania. Sneh Patel, Ohio. Mark Yassa, Ontario, Canada. Leandro C. Prasad, Trinidad and Tobago. Balaji Kothuru, Maryland. Anthony Frank, Grenada. Srinidhi Ravi, Botswana. Vittorio Ani, Nigeria. Lane Buchner, Wisconsin. Dupinder Raman, Ontario, Canada. Amna Nadim, Ontario, Canada. I will now call on the students of Fleming College to be robed. Bhakti Savak, Michigan. Zara Rayapaneni, California. Hannah Aheknan Brifo, Ghana. Eden Malka, New York. Fasi Husseini, Illinois. Emily Hernandez, Florida. Sandra Witkowski, New York. Anjali Thacker, California. Carla Demerjan, California. Apeksha Tripathi, New Jersey. Sam Al-Nimri, California. Makita Bradshaw, Barbados. Fadia Binyamin, California. Tashfia Zareen, Bangladesh. Tiffany Kennedy, Florida. Annette Ramirez, New York. Dominique Jeremiah, Grenada. Nyamoita Ongwai, Kenya. Joshua Edidiong, Nigeria. Yusuf Majid, Illinois. Sachin Sukdeo, Trinidad and Tobago. Gabriel Austin, Trinidad and Tobago. Nishad Badri, Trinidad and Tobago. Ariel Rambaros, Trinidad and Tobago. Kadiatu Sundukun Sise, Sierra Leone. Michaela Bennett, New York. Nikisha Hendrickson Alexander, Manitoba, Canada. Alim Mulich, New York. I now call on the students of Galen College to be robed. Sahaj Preet Kaur, California. Jeremy Bassan, Florida. Emily Balcueva, Michigan. Jeremy Segal, California. Anna Maharaj, Trinidad and Tobago. Charlotte Gonickman, California. Donatilla Bennett, Florida. Riley Scarborough, Texas. Russell Feldman, New York. Gabriela Del Sol, Cuba. Abigail Gordon, Jamaica. Rahmat Abdurrahman, Minnesota. Imad Farhat, Palestine State. Jaswant Kura, New Jersey. Mustafa Asif, British Columbia, Canada. Cody Doherty, New Jersey. Emily McGovern, Connecticut. Paulina Cruz, New York. Unzila Mumtaz, New Jersey. Didipya Gudipati, Georgia. Shauna Saunders, Trinidad and Tobago. Mishak Taylor, Trinidad and Tobago. Kasturi Parai, Trinidad and Tobago. Masood Rabieh, California. Colton White, Vermont. Mark Joshua Nerit Magawai, California. Lauren Wong, California. Anna Kathleen Sartini, Virginia. Rochelle Donegan, Pennsylvania. Adriana Kiz, Manitoba, Canada. Teba Khan, New Jersey. Brianna Thurman, Michigan. Noor Boshra, Egypt. Tebi Matilla, Botswana. Tashfia Namzi, Texas. I will now call the students from Hippocrates College to be rowed. Rashikwa Abdel Jabbar, Louisiana. Sana Beg, Florida. Katarina DiMaggio, New Jersey. Sorry. Aiden Garner, Texas. Autuli Fanfan, Florida. Sindhu Parai, New Jersey. Kirsten Alexis Warfield, Indiana. Ariel Kunitz, California. Jaron Rodriguez, Florida. John Haddad, Syria. Omar Khaled Al-Khuli, Egypt. Hassan Alibhai, Ontario, Florida. Sukhpreet Kaur, Ontario, Canada. Danielle Doe, North Carolina. Jimmy Choi, New York. Paige Stewart, California. Deng Alier Aguto, South Sudan. Haley Bassani, Wisconsin. Amber Stout, Florida. Michael Sabella, New Jersey. Gabrielle Edwards, Michigan. Sydney Jackson, Michigan. Yunso Lee, Quebec, Canada. Sydney Lee, British Columbia, Canada. Kankarn Maman, Thailand. Catherine Bird, Virginia. Jayasatri Sohit. Jastri Sohit. Shivani Jaisingani, New Jersey. Irene Lee, New York. Shamari Perkins, California. Sorry. I now call on the students of McIndoe College to be robed. Sami Khalil, California. Ethan Hamilton Potts, South Africa. Asia Mitchell, California. Francesca Prieto, Florida. Alicia Lewis, Bermuda. Rebecca Diggs, Louisiana. Joella Rowland, New York. Cameron Blanchard, Florida. Melissa Ramnoth, Ontario, Canada. John Hamilton, Jamaica. Shannon St. John, California. Tommy Cheng, Nevada. Angel Patel, Pennsylvania. Maite Cadena, New Jersey. Elma Basic, New York. Natalia Bedoya Rendon, Florida. Jamie Aman, Minnesota. Vasuki Kandali, New York, India. Gurpreet Mahi, New York. Sana Arif, New York. Liam Fisher, British Columbia, Canada. Turk Gul, Washington. Alexa Ray Zutkowski, Indiana. Victoria Teresa Holton, New York. Lindsay Brown, Wisconsin. John Hanna, New York. Ashton J., California. Jacqueline Hidalgo, New York. Leah Lysak, Michigan. I now call on the students of Metrodora College to be robed. Andrew Wasif, California. Melissa Waldron, Guyana. Mickey Epstein, New York. Makita Green, New York. April Emokpai, Florida. Joyce Uzoma Onwuchekwa, Georgia. Yasmin Issa, Ohio. Demetris Conde, Louisiana. Jordan Fleetwood, Missouri. Dylan Little, New York. Mariah Moore, Pennsylvania. Jacob Friedman, California. Michael Asaf, Jordan. Haley Bauer, North Carolina. Rachel Elizabeth Kelly, Florida. Roshni Tana, Florida. Yvonne Fancha, Cameroon. Mohammed Hassona, Egypt. Patrick Berry, Illinois. Amal Kaluki, Florida. Celia Canova from Cuba. Brandon Landis, Alabama. Adam Nickel, Arizona. Philo Patir Bulos, New Jersey. Joshua Wallace, New York. Maya Doniparti, Wisconsin. Abdur Rafi, Ontario, Canada. Sean Saftar, Iowa. Jacob Lamb, Virginia. Raekwon Thompson, New York. Maria Simona Carnovale, Ontario, Canada. Dr. Tafatswa Chikopvu, Alberta, Canada. Pratiksha Shah, New Jersey. Punima Gill, Ontario, Canada. Sydney Jaggernath, Trinidad and Tobago. Raghav Kumar, California. I now call on the students of Peabody College to be robed. Jihye Ham, South Korea. Aribisala Oluwatosi Onioluwa, Nigeria. Min Myat Sun, Myanmar. Kush Parikh, India. Zaid Mohammed, India. Hatem Hussain, India. Pedro Pacheco, Brazil. Mehroz Ahmed, United Kingdom. Anurag Ayagari, New Jersey. Chancellor Simmonsma, California. Patricia Chevalier, Florida. Justin Visoso, Arizona. Visara Cheng, Arizona. Anabel Sanchez Martinez, Florida. Ria Prague, Wisconsin. Crystal Stifo, Michigan. Anmol Situ, British Columbia, Canada. Susanna Islam, New York. Fatima Obeid, Michigan. Marie Khalil Youssef, Michigan. Mary Khalil Youssef, Michigan. Jurek Francis Ferdes, New York. Kurt Lanning, New York. Chayani Lina, Thailand. Jennifer Moskovich, Florida. Carolyn Cheney, Florida. Saket Vasa, Florida. Zulfat Zam, Tanzania. Brittany Woodruff, New York. Edwin Charles Narte, Ghana. Hirad Fatayani, Ontario, Canada. And I now call on the students who will be robed by their designees. Jillian McStudy, New Jersey, coded by her mother, Dr. Deborah Coy. Jennifer Acevedo from Florida, being coded by her father, Dr. Jorge Acevedo. Dana Borgen, coded by her father, Dr. Patrick Borgen. And Ezekiel Sanchez, coded by his father-in-law, Dr. Patrick Borgen. Amani Ali of California, being coded by her mother, Dr. Uzma Ali. Aman Tanwani from Texas, being coded by his father, Dr. Tekchand Tanwani. Simi Fasehun from Illinois, being coded by her mother, Dr. Olubusola Fasehun. Ramis Adnan from Texas, being coded by his father, Dr. Hamid. Shalise Shahidi of California, being coded by her mother, Dr. Nahal Afshar. Natalia Acebal, being coded by her father, Dr. Jose Acebal, from Florida. Mohammed Siddiqui of Michigan, being coded by his mother, Dr. Adila Beg. Carly J. Hanlon from New Jersey, being coded by her grandfather, Dr. Robert J. Hanlon. And Trevor Olds from Vermont, being coded by his father, Dr. G. Richard Olds. So that student wanted this. The student asked for this.
Well, what do you think? They seem to fit just fine, right? Okay, I'd like to call Dr. Kazara Rayburn. She's a beloved faculty member amongst her peers and students. She's an alumni of our university, and she's also the Assistant Dean of Curriculum in the Basic Sciences. And she will lead you in your professionalism commitment, the oath part today. So thank you very much.
So good morning, everyone. I would like to invite all of the students to stand as we take the professionalism oath and commitment. So this commitment was written by a student task force in 1995 and has been recited at each of the white coats since then. So today is the beginning, so recite with me. Today is the beginning of my medical education and training as a physician. I acknowledge my responsibility to continue the pursuit of knowledge and understanding until that day when I will cease to be a practicing physician. I am entering a training for a noble profession in which my interests must always be subservient to those who may seek my assistance. I must ever be conscious of the value of health professionals and treat them with respect at all times. My classmates at St. George's University are now my colleagues, and I owe to them the same support and encouragement to encourage their goals I hope to receive from them. I will work alongside my colleagues and professors with tolerance, compassion, and honesty. I acknowledge the obligation to adhere to the university code of conduct and self with integrity and in an ethical manner at all times henceforth. I should do all within my power to show in myself an example of all that is honorable and good throughout my medical career. It is a privilege to have been given the opportunity to become a physician. May I be ever conscious of that privilege and never abuse it. I would now like to introduce Dr. Robert Grant, who is the Senior Associate Dean for Clinicals, and he will be giving you some congratulatory remarks. Thank you, Dr. Grant.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here on behalf of our clinical faculty at our 70-plus affiliated sites around the world, the United States, United Kingdom, to welcome you to the profession of medicine during this white coat ceremony. You may realize that the white coat ceremony is a metaphor for the responsibilities that you're taking on as future practitioners of the art and science of medicine. You should also know that in some parts of the world, infectious disease has progressed enough to the point where doctors no longer wear white coats because the fomites, the diseases which we carry around from patient to patient, speak to the fact that I guess we're all busy and don't send our white coats to the dry cleaner often enough. You'll get plenty of use of your white coats, though, not to worry. The reason I'm here at the end of the program is because I represent your future. The fantastic faculty that you have here are going to help you develop your IQ, the foundational portion of what you need to know to become a successful practitioner. When you get into my world, the clinical world, we're going to work on developing your EQ. To paraphrase what Dr. Oles told you in his remarks, and to also paraphrase the fantastic clinician and medical philosopher, Sir William Osler, the secret to caring for the patient is caring for the patient. That you can't develop by studying for your Step 1 and your core and BME exams. There you really need to be on the wards to learn about the different clinical types of programs that we have to decide exactly what kind of doctor that you want to be. So in addition to being someone who was at Columbia during my career and had an opportunity to meet and interact with Dr. Goals, it's unbelievably positive for me to see the future of medicine sitting out here before me. As I get to visit each of the clinical sites, I get to see exactly where medicine is going. And despite what you hear in the background about noise, about the challenges of the medical profession, there is nothing more honorable than the experiences that each and every one of you are going to have. Dr. Olds explained 3 of them he had. I bet each and every one of you are going to have many, many more. Think about that gift that you'll be given, the opportunity to interact in the life of another human being that no one else is going to have the opportunity to do. No other profession will allow you that particular opportunity. The white coat ceremony is all about understanding with that privilege comes responsibilities. And while figuratively you can take the white coat off, you can never take off those responsibilities from this day onward. There will be sacrifices. The reason that the practice of medicine is hard is because it's very fulfilling as a result. You all know at this point, I don't need to tell you, that you're here because you've worked hard. And today is the beginning, another milestone as you hear, of the successful journey towards becoming a physician. But if it came easy, it wouldn't mean what it means to you all. So I congratulate you on being here today. Yes. Unlike some of the other speakers, you're going to get to hear from me again at term 5. So we'll talk more about the various nuances of the transition to the clinical years. But like the other speakers, I'll also be there in graduation in 2027 to shake your hand and congratulate you as you start your residencies. So my final words to you today. First, students, please join me in a round of applause for your parents, friends, and significant others who are here today. We know that practice of medicine, and they know the sacrifices that have been made in the past and that will be made in the future. Remember, having that kind of support is essential to your own well-being. As my friend, colleague, and our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Richard Leibowitz, likes to say when he has the opportunity to speak to the students, remember that airline safety announcement. When putting that mask down, if the cabin decompresses, put your own mask on first. Ask for help if you need it. We practice in a team environment. You get consults from peers who have more knowledge about a particular clinical situation. There's no reason why you shouldn't have the same opportunity to get help from peers, friends, and family if you're facing very challenging personal and professional situations. So, congratulations to you all. I thank our distinguished guests, including the representatives from the government, Chancellor Modica, Dean Lucas, but most importantly, the students and my colleagues here at the School of Medicine who have welcomed me so warmly to the community at St. George's the way I know that they're welcoming you. God bless and Godspeed.
Okay, on behalf of St. George's University, I'd like to thank the Arnold Gold Foundation for the Humanism in Medicine pins that each of you have on your white coat. Thank you to the students, families, staff, faculty, administrators for your support and your presence this morning. You're all invited to a reception at the Louis and Marion Modica Hall, but please remain seated and keep the aisles clear as our faculty and then students leave the venue. Thank you again, congratulations, and I'll see you in class. So one little moment, because there may be another update to the schedule here. On my notes here, it says that the reception is in Modica, but I believe it's in Belford. Can someone make sure that's correct? Have we got anyone who can confirm to me? It's Belford. Thank you very much.